And a hot day it was across much of the northeast and mid-Atlantic states, and also in the southern plains and the lower Mississippi Valley, and even pushing up into parts of the Ohio Valley as two heat waves are underway and continuing. We'll let you know if and when they're ever going to break, because heaven knows they may never break, or at least it feels that way. Oops. All that and more. Oh boy. Are you there, Joe?
Yes.
All right, hang on 1 second. Yeah, the Joe and Joe Weather Show, but I just got some weird error has occurred. Okay. You guys can see me on the chat board. Just let us know if you can see us or hear us, because my screen is telling me that there's an error of some kind. Oh, anyway, let me see. I'm going to try this. Um, just waiting to get through the delay here. Let's try this and see if that works. Are you seeing us, Mr. Rayo?
I see the cover slide, the Joe and Joe Weather Show, heat wave underway, and that sort of stuff. And I see the chat board is moving.
Okay. And I see the cover slide too. And now I'm going to move the cover slide. All right. Well, let's see if we come up on the screen. Been a strange.
Oh, there we are.
Yeah, okay, good. Everything is working. That was a weird error that came up. It came up as an error, but things were okay. I just couldn't see what's on. It's sort of trying to be a director and you don't have the monitor there in front of you to see what's going on. So, welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show on this tepid day across many areas in the east and south. Um, I understand that you were quite warm where you were. I saw. Did Newark get to 100? Because I saw 100 on the hazards map when I centered it on Newark. It was 97 degrees at 4 o'clock this afternoon, but they said that the high was 100. But then the chairman messaged me and said that their high was just 99. So I don't know which is it. Did they get to 100?
Let me check. Hold on. Yes, they did.
They got to
Yes, they
100
did.
degrees. And what did LaGuardia get to? I think I saw 97 for them. And usually
Okay.
they
Well,
usually they are a vicious hotspot.
okay. Well, let's check La Garbage and see what they got up to. Hang on. LaGuardia got to 97.
So they got to 97 too. Oh, isn't that exciting? Meanwhile, trying to find. Oh, here we go. Meanwhile, I don't know if you saw this, Joe, but I'm going to show this because it was just so exceptional. I decided today. A friend of mine is in town, and hang on a second. Let me get to the shot I want. You know what? This is ridiculous. Let's try this again. All right, let's try this again. Okay, where are you? Start with this one. So I went today, Joe, up to Brasstown Bald, which is just under 4,900 feet above sea level. And I took some pictures while I was up there. And I have to tell you, this is at the parking lot is about, I don't know, maybe about another 500 feet down. So you go up another 500 feet to get to the very peak. It was in the 60s up there. It was cool. And as I sat through there's a 14-minute film feature that you can sit through up there because there's like a museum and a little amphitheater. That the temperature in Brasstown Ball at the top there has never ever gotten above 84 degrees. Okay, and it's been as low as 27 degrees below zero. So
Wow.
I want to share everybody with everybody these shots. This is in northeast Georgia, so which is a lot different from southern Georgia because once you get south of Atlanta, Atlanta's 800 feet above sea level. Once you get south of Atlanta, it's as flat as a board. and it's that way all the way, pretty much all the way down till you get to Florida. So it gets really hot in the southern half of Georgia. But in northern Georgia, you got these mountains, and you and I have talked many times, and I've often bragged about the fact that how my temperatures here have are so much cooler than everywhere else. And this was a revelation today because I have to tell you, I kind of wish I had a sweatshirt with me up there because it was kind of cool and it was also breezy uh, through all of this. I was hoping that there would have been some thunderstorms forming in the background because that often happens in the afternoon and evening this time of year. But not today, just a lot of clouds. But I mean, you could see from these shots, it was just absolutely just beautiful up there. Um, Clouds, very not really very much in the way of sunshine, and North Georgia is loaded with mountains. So if you've never been, uh, put it on your bucket list because it really is a beautiful, beautiful place in this state to visit, and you'll be a hell of a lot cooler. You're 2 hours north of Atlanta, and on average about 7 to 10 degrees cooler here every day. How can you possibly complain about that?
Yeah, well, at 6:08 today, at 6:08 at Rancho Rayo in Putnam Valley, we had a high temperature of, well, we didn't have a high. It looks like a high, but it wasn't. We had a temperature at 6:08 of 96 degrees, a heat index of 104, and our high temperature today was 97, and that was at 2:30, half past two this afternoon. So it was every bit. I can assure you, Joe, I was not wondering on whether or not I should wear my sweatshirt. It was not a
No,
sweatshirt
you
day
you know now
out
you
there
can at
today.
least you can certainly thank Mrs. Rayo for putting in that obnoxiously round and large swimming pool that you should have been able to take advantage of. See,
Well, I can assure
she
you
knew
that,
all along that it was going to be needed.
well, both my lovely wife and my lovely daughter spent part of the afternoon in the obnoxiously large circular swimming pool. I, on the other hand, decided I would just stay dry and stay in the air conditioning in here in the house. So
No, we
different
all
strokes,
are different
different strokes for
folks.
different folks. Yes.
Did she at least try to get you to go in the pool? Did she try to
Oh,
tell?
she's always
Right,
asking.
but did she try to tell you that you would be much cooler if you went in the pool than if you would by staying inside the house?
Well,
I'm sorry,
tomorrow,
I'm desperately trying to get you into a whole lot of trouble here.
yes, and you're probably succeeding. But I just continuing on the argument about, oh, we've never had anything like this. The heat, the humidity. Oh, this is horrible. Mike, Rob Friedowitz, who is an amazing guy in that he keeps an amazing list of weather events on a daily basis. And I just out of the blue, I decided to just check today in New York weather history, July the 20th. It never gets this hot. Here you go. 1928 on this date, Central Park. High temperatures over the past 4 days, 90, 89, 90, 89, alternating by 1 degree. Um, let's see, what else do you have? Um, Temperature on this date in 1980. You thought today was hot? Temperature in 1980 on this date soared to a record-breaking 101 degrees. That's a little bit longer, 101.
Right.
1982. You remember that?
Yes,
You
I
remember that
do.
commercial, right? Oh, how about this? 2008. Um, the 1/100th of an inch of rain that fell today in the late evening was just the second time measurable rain fell on the state in the past 19 years. During the daytime hours, the temperature rose to 94. This is in 2008, the fifth day in a row, with highs in the 90s. Then in 2012, 2 days after a scorching high of 100, this afternoon's temperature fell into the low 60s Joe, after 100 degrees 2 days earlier. The day's official high of 72 occurred in the wee hours of the morning. 93 on this date in 2013. Seventh day in a row with a high in the 90s, making this the longest heat wave since 2002, when there was one of 8 days and another of 9 days. Today was also the third day in a row in 2013 with a low of 80 or warmer. Of New York's 22 major heat waves, 7 days or longer, this one in 2013 had the highest mean temperature. Although the average high of 94.6 ranked it as 11th, it had the warmest low of any of them, 79.0. So the resultant mean temperature was, this is the mean temperature now,
Right.
86.8, placing it 0.1 degree ahead of a heat wave that occurred back in August of 1988. No, this is amazing. We've never seen heat like this. Really? I mean, I could go on and on with all of these other dates in New York history where we've had atrociously long and hot days, but this was just one day, and we'll probably have a bunch more before this is all.
So let me ask you. I saw a story. I saw a story this morning. The headline. It was from a New York. I forgot to check to see where it was from, but it was New York City in the grips of an intense heat wave. This is after one day where the temperature yesterday got to 90 or 91. I think there was maybe Newark got to 93 or 4. So now
and it's not even a heat wave yet. It's not yet a heat wave.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's exactly correct. So I was trying to sort of decide, okay, is he writing in present tense, in which case the headline is ridiculous? Is he writing in future tense, saying that, over the course of the next 5 or 6 days, we will have all those days temperatures will be up into the 90s. So maybe we could call that, certainly call it a heat wave. I don't know if I would call it an intense heat wave, but I certainly would call it a heat wave. And then I just decided that I was so utterly bored with the whole concept of trying to figure what the mindset of this person out that I didn't even bother to read the article, and I just closed it off on my web browser, and that was the end of that. But yeah, I mean, it's July, it gets hot. And by the way, there was one other question I really would love the answer to. We were talking about, I'm not trying to be mean here or be nasty by any means, and I'm not making, this is not for political reasons, but yesterday's temperature with London, there was such a big deal made about the temperature, the all-time record high, 104.4, or I think that was the number. Do we know if that was measured at Heathrow or was that measured actually in downtown London? I would love to know the answer to that question as to whether that 104 was in the city itself, or was that measured on on some runway, on the blacktop of some runway. And by the way, I think that's the issue with Newark, because I believe the thermometer there sits at the top of one of the Newark runway.
You know who would be able to answer the question relative to Newark? And I don't even know if he's still alive. He was very.
It'd be very important that if you're going to ask a question of somebody, particularly if we want to get them on the show, that they be living.
Right.
We want our guests to be living creatures.
But you remember Gene Hathaway at the National Weather Service? Yeah. He was based in Newark. He probably could tell you. Well, he could tell you like 40 years ago. I don't know what he could tell you now. I agree with you. I thought LaGuardia was the brand new airport heat.
Yeah, but you know
island,
what? They're done with the construction there. So all the reasons why those temperatures are out of whack are pretty much, they're not there anymore. So it looks like the LaGuardia thermometer is actually looking a lot more normalized than it's been in a long, long time. So now Newark is the area hotspot. There was a stretch back, 10 or 15, I don't know how many years ago, where for a few years Central Park's thermometer was higher than everybody else, and then it migrated to Newark, and then it migrated to LaGuardia. It was one of these. It was very strange, but yeah. So I guess we got to find out if that 104.4 was in London itself or in Heathrow? And the other question is, where is the Newark thermometer? Is it? And by the way, even if it's not at the runway, there's nothing there. It's not like there's a park nearby or any kind of grassy area. I mean, there really is nothing. It's wide open, flat, concrete. It's next to the Jersey Turnpike, which is what 10 lanes in each direction. So basically 20 lanes of highway and all other kinds of roads going up and over it, left and right, up and down, east and west. So it, it it's hard to get a real idea of what the actual air temperature is there when you're in that sort of environment. But I got the maps to show the highs, and as hot as it is or was today, I guess they're going to be the urban areas tonight, Joe, probably not going to get down below 80. I would imagine, New York City probably dropping maybe 79 or 80, and maybe Newark gets to 81 or 2, and then that's it.
Where I used to live in Throgs Neck, the house I lived in was brick, and I can remember more than a few nights, probably like tonight. I used to step outside like 11 o'clock at night, and you could literally feel the heat radiating off the brick. And my room, by the way, faced toward the west northwest. So in the afternoon, the sun was blistering right at me, right in my window. When I got my first job, when I got my first job at the private weather company in 1978, the very first thing I did with my first paycheck was go out and buy an air conditioner. I always wanted an air conditioner. I finally that was the one thing that I wanted more than anything. And yeah, in the city, in urban locations like tonight, it's something else to try to stay cool if you don't have access to an air conditioner or a fan. As I mentioned last night, I mean, people back in the 1930s and 40s, they would sleep out on the fire escape.
Yep.
And that was a misdemeanor. But according to that, here's a name that nobody will know unless you're from a certain age. But he was a humorist, and he was seen a lot on television in the 50s and 60s. Sam Levinson. Sam Levinson used to like to talk about his life growing up in New York, and he would say, on hot nights like tonight, the whole family would go out on the fire escape, and that's where they would spend the night to try to stay cool. It's you do what you have to do.
Oh yeah,
amazing.
Well, the high temperatures in the eastern part of the United States is a bit of an upside down nature to it all. I got the hazards map up so we could take a look at some of the highs across the Northeast. Now, some of these you got to be careful because some of these numbers, if a one of these local thermometers that plots on the map is a little out of whack, clearly the 100 that is sitting in Little Falls, New York, between Albany and Utica, is out of whack here. I think. Because the neighboring Fulton County Airport high was just 90. In Utica itself, it was 93. So I'm going to say that the 100
Isn't that where Uncle Leo lives?
Yes, exactly. And Albany today got to 97. We've got 95 for Fitchburg in Eastern Mass, and Lawrence G. Hanscom Field Airport in Eastern Mass, outside of Boston, west of Boston, got to 95 today. Logan getting to 91. And of course, you see the area of mid 90s to around 100. Not only did Newark get to 100, but Somerville in New Jersey also got to 100. Atlantic City got to 97. Philadelphia, Doylestown got to 97 in Pennsylvania. Philadelphia International Airport 97. But then you head down further south into the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. Not quite as hot there. 93 in Montgomery County Airport. 95, though, in Baltimore itself. Patuxent River only getting to 90. And then you get further south into Virginia. I mean, it was mostly lower 90s, which is not exactly anything to scream home about as far as heat is concerned. And in North Carolina, it was mostly lower 90s, a few spots pushing the envelope. It was actually much warm. It was warmest in the eastern part of the state than it was in the west. Low 90s in Georgia, low 90s in South Carolina. I just want to see. Actually, only got to 82 in my local airport here in Blairsville International Airport, with continuing service into the big metropolitan areas like Ellijay and Jasper, and every once in a while you could take a flight over to Chattanooga without taking the choo-choo. But it's actually the hot spot was in the northern Mid-Atlantic into southern New England today. Relatively speaking, it really wasn't that bad as you go further south. Now head to the west, and we start to move into Arkansas and areas into Oklahoma. We start to get into a lot of 100 plus highs there, and in Oklahoma. I'm trying to see if I could pick out. I see 109 in Frederick. I believe that's on the Oklahoma side of the border, and I got a 114 here on the Texas side, west of Denton, Texas, northwest of Fort Worth. So this is Jack County, 114 for a high there. 108 in Graham Municipal Airport. Fort Worth got to 109. Dallas, 106. Let's go further south if I can find a few other big numbers here. I'm sorry to monotonize this, but it just takes a while to go around the country. And of course now, there we go. The circle of death is finally finished. Where was that? The 111, Comanche, Texas, Comanche County City Airport, 111. Austin, 105. Houston, Hooks Memorial Airport got to 106. I don't know if have you been to Houston, Joe?
No, never have
Okay.
been.
I mean, I've been to Houston. Houston is in the summertime and I don't mean this in a really, it's a wonderful city. I actually like Houston very much, but in the summertime, it can be downright miserably hot and miserably humid just if it's a normal heat with temperatures into the 90s. But at 106 in Houston, in the metro area there, I mean, that is just unbearable. I mean, it has to be absolutely
What we ought to do,
unbearable.
we ought to try to get Addison Green on the show and ask him. This is probably the reason why Addison Green no longer does the weather at KCBS in Houston. He was there for about 1.5 years, and he very quickly got out. I wonder whether or not that the weather may have had something to do with that.
Well, it's tough down there. I moved up further north where you start to get out of the hundreds once you move into Kansas. I saw Ms. Fallerite on the chat board mentioning that she was a little cooler today. Lawrence Municipal Airport in northeast Kansas, 95 for a high. Kansas City only getting to 90 degrees for a high, and 86 in St. Joseph on the Missouri side there. St. Joseph, Missouri at 86 for a high. But you get down further south, there was one 100-degree high at Winfield, Arkansas City in southeast Kansas, getting to 100. And then you start to get into the big 100-degree readings as you move over into Oklahoma. So clearly, this was that's the heat wave that's been much more pronounced and actually began back in the month of June in that part of the country, and we've been just sort of watching this heat ridge, I guess, flux back and forth um, with respect to coming and going, shifting a little bit east, a little bit to the west. Now tonight, looking at the satellite, there's not a whole lot of shower and thunderstorm activity going on. We're getting some blowups from a weather front moving across the Great Lakes with a nice rotation there with the upper feature in the northern lakes that's moving east, and that's going to be a weather front that's going to come through tomorrow. I don't like to call it a cold front, Joe, because you know what? It's just as hot on the other side. It really is just a slight drop in the dew points maybe for Friday, a slight drop. You might not notice it, but technically that's what it is. So when you look at it, you say, okay, that's a cold front that's there, but it's not really a cold front.
It's a dry front.
Yes.
I mean, it's not even a wind shift line. It's just a dry. Yeah, you're right. The only effect will be in terms of the lowering of the dew point, however small that may be.
Yep. And on the radar, there's some big storms moving across northeastern Ohio. Looks like some severe thunderstorm warnings from Cleveland southwestward, and even a tornado warning has popped up there on the radar. Let's see if I can get a quick look at that. I can't seem to zoom in on here. So, but nothing going on for the most part from me. There's some stuff in upstate New York and in north central New York and along the south shores of Lake Ontario, some showers there. But it's fairly quiet until you get into North Carolina, where we got a couple of clusters of thunderstorms, one in the central part of the state, the other one near the coast. Also, some patchy shower activity dying out, I guess, from earlier today in northern Florida and off the South Carolina coast. A little bit of action there in Colorado down into New Mexico. And that's just about it as far as precip is concerned. Now, the Storm Prediction Center for tonight has a slight risk there in the Ohio Valley. We do have a working severe thunderstorm watch in northeastern Ohio, which you obviously saw it was on the radar, and that's playing out according to plan. And tomorrow, as we take a look, we're going to see the risk area in New England down to just the marginal risk to just south of Route 78 in New Jersey. So from there, north and east, that's where the risk is. And then there's a gap, Joe. Then there's another marginal to slight risk from the Delmarva Peninsula in eastern Virginia, all through the southeastern part of the U.S., and then back across the Gulf states. They put this little hole in the middle. I don't know why they didn't just connect the two and make a marginal risk, at least, that goes down, connecting the northern area to the southern area. But, I defer to them. They did that once before a couple of weeks ago and didn't turn out too well. So let's see how this one turns out.
Well, what's interesting is that especially the global models really do not forecast very much happening tomorrow
No.
in terms of convective activity. And so, yeah, I mean, I look at the some of the MOS, the model guidance, and they're giving percentages of like 8% or 9% probability of precipitation. He's saying yourself, if that be the case, then how is it possible that they're outlining much of the Northeast for thunderstorms? But again, they're the experts. They know, so we'll follow along there with that.
I didn't even look at what the short range models did with this tomorrow. But bottom line is that even if this does have, we get a few thunderstorms tomorrow evening and they go by. After that, it's back to the heat. Rainfall in the next 7 days, a quarter to a half an inch. Some places you want to call it a half to 3/4 up into New England and upstate New York. I mean, the everybody east of the Mississippi, it just basically has that look of what happens in the latter part of July. We've got monsoonal action still going on in the Southwest, which is really good there because that's been going on now for the better part of a month. So that's actually helping the drought situation in Arizona, New Mexico, and parts of Colorado. So I'm sure those folks are happy if the monsoon rains just keep going. And as far as the pattern is concerned, overall, I think what I will do is let's run through I got the surface map here up first, so let's do that since I already have it on the screen. Then we'll look at the upper air. So you're right. The global models tomorrow, it's almost as if they don't develop the thunderstorms until the front is already by, and you see the development is more offshore. They do develop some storms in eastern Virginia and over the Delmarva Peninsula, and also way up in Maine, but not much in between. And then there's other storms from Georgia down into Mississippi into southeast Louisiana. That front just goes out, and again, the air behind it is just as hot as the air ahead of it. So we'll be pretty much in the 90s on Friday and on Saturday, and then Sunday another front approaches. Now I thought the Sunday front, Joe, might have a better chance of producing storms. Now I'm looking at the 18Z GFS, which is hanging the front up to the northwest Sunday night with thunderstorms well inland, and it doesn't bring the front through until sometime later on Monday. So now it's a little bit slower in bringing that front through. And then maybe some dew point relief after that front goes by for a couple of days. From what I was looking at earlier. And going into the long range, I mean, there's another front here that comes through around the 28th, which would be next Thursday. And that goes by, and I got to look at the upper air because you look at the surface here, it's a little, it becomes more difficult with time and trying to gauge what you're dealing with this time of year. Let me put some, let's put the heights up on here. Let's look for troughs in the east. If you want cool weather, let's look for troughs dropping into the east and digging a little bit. We want them to dig, don't we, Joe?
Yeah, we want them to dig. Dig.
Yes. So, all right. So Mondays.
I will, I will say this, and I know Dennis Cassia is online right now on the chat board, and not this weekend, but the following weekend is what is known as Stellafane. It's kind of like a Woodstock with telescopes, where hundreds and sometimes in some years thousands of amateur astronomers they meet just on a hill called Breezy Hill, just outside of Springfield, Vermont. And I've been going there. This is going to be like Dennis's 50th year of going. I've only been there for 30 or 35 trips over the last half century. I mean, we've had some years where it's been very cloudy. Other years it's been rainy, and some years have been. I remember one year in particular. I think it was 1986, atrociously hot. The last thing you want to do is to go to a place. We call it a Woodstock with telescopes. The last thing you want to do is to go to a place where it's like a blistering 90 or 95 degrees, and all you can do is just like walk around all day and try to, pour water over your head and hydrate or whatever. But if Dennis is listening, my prediction right now, and you can verify this since you're going to talk about the upper air, Joe, is I think by the middle or latter part of next week, if the upper flow is going to turn out of the northwest enough
Yes.
so that enough dry and cooler air will arrive. And so it looks like right now, Dennis and his wife Kim, if she's listening too, it looks like right now with guarded optimism, I would say the weather is not looking too bad at all. In fact, it looks rather nice for later next week if you can hang on and wait that long.
Yeah, no, we got a couple of nice troughs next week that drop into the eastern part of the United States. I mean, they don't dig all the, excuse me, they don't dig that far south, but they do dig far enough south that it should push the heat out, at least for a while. Now, ultimately, as we head into the early days of August, there's a trough right at the end of the month that goes through. And then after that pulls out, if the GFS is correct, it wants to build the ridge back into the eastern part of the United States and push the westerlies back up into Canada. Now, that may not be correct, but that's what it's doing. I want to just look at the 12Z just for comparison's sake to see if it does the same thing. I mean, the 12Z did also drop troughs into the eastern part of the United States through next week. Again, that would be a plus because that'll shut the heat off. And actually, the 12Z has got more troughing in the east and has the ridge going back out into the west. And that matches up much better with what the teleconnections were showing overnight with the overnight models, where the PNA was going positive, and also the NAO was going positive too, which is actually good news, because if it goes positive, that means weather systems can move along from west to east. And if you've got amplitude going on in the west, you're probably going to have some troughs dropping into the eastern part of the United States. There'll be some ridging in between those troughs, but at least everything will be moving rather than having a stagnant upper high sitting nearby and keep pumping the heat up. So some hope coming in the longer term. So I would agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, if you talk about, oh my God, the heat. It's going to be with us for I remember. We've had heat waves. We've had days where we've strung together, as we said, like 90 plus degree temperatures, 7, 8, 10, 12 days in a row. And here we are, I think sometime early next week, we'll be seeing this break. Now, I noticed that you put this up on the screen already,
Yes.
and I wanted to read this to you. This is from the New York Times. Heat grips Europe. Records broke. Now several people are saying like they've been seeing on television, like we've never seen heat like this before. It's horrible. It's terrible. And oh, it's a record breaking. Heat grips Europe. Records broken in Rhine Valley, Switzerland, and Italy. Central Europe sweltered today under a week-old heat wave that sent temperatures to 104 and 105 degrees and caused an estimated 300 deaths from drowning and heat stroke. Weather Bureau records were broken in many areas. No hope for relief was in sight before the middle of next week. From Hamburg on the North Sea to the Mediterranean, the sun blazed from a cloudless sky. Acute water shortages were threatening many areas, devastated by torrential spring floods only 2 months ago. The hottest areas today were in the Rhine Valley, parts of Switzerland, and in northern Italy. Forest fires added a new menace. One blaze near the Swiss resort of Davos spread so rapidly that troops were called out to aid local firefighters. Does this all sound very familiar, Joe?
I've never heard of any of this. It's never
From what
happened.
you?
Joe, it's never happened before.
Oh, it never has.
No, it never
This is.
has.
It's from the. This is from the. I kid you not. This is from the New York Times, dated July. Oh, wait a minute. July when? July 5th. But we're already into July 20. Where's this from? This is a relatively small news report printed in the New York Times from July the 6th, 1952. 1952, Joe. Record high temperatures, 104 to 105, forest fires. I mean, it sounds so familiar to what's being reported now. And let me point this out again. What's going on right now in Europe, which is probably not much different than what was going on back in 52. Today, this is making like headlines on page 3, and covering like half page, with pictures and everything else. This was just a little report about what was going on in Europe on page 48 of the July 6, 1952 New York Times. Did you see the difference, folks,
No, of
between
course.
reporting a story from 70 plus years ago, and basically the same thing that's happening now, except what's happening now is cataclysmic. The world is coming to an end. Death and destruction, everything else like that. I mean, it's amazing. It really is. But there you go.
It is. Everybody is. I hate to say it. The self-absorption of people. Their entire world rotates around their axis. Do you know that I read a tweet from somebody that was wondering why is it that there's always storm chasers around where there are tornadoes, and said that they were manufacturing the tornadoes in order to chase them. Okay, I mean this is the kind
Oh
of
yeah.
this is the kind of stuff. I mean, people don't even know how to reason anymore. That's the thing. People don't know how to reason. They two unrelated things happen and they make the connection. Like, I mean, just as an example, I turn the faucet on and the doorbell rings. So I conclude that anytime I turn the faucet, right, anytime I turn the faucet on, there's going to be somebody at my front door. I mean, that's the kind of reasoning that people do. So everyone's world is only what they know around them, and they are quite ignorant of how things function and how the world works and how science works. Oh, and then I read something else that trying to make a connection between between climate change and the aurora borealis, because the aurora borealis was visible the other night in South Dakota, and it was a really bright aurora borealis, but apparently, it's because of climate change, that because of additional solar radiation. I mean, all this stuff that's just going on is like, really, I can't read I can't read a lot of this stuff anymore. I lose my patience. I can't read a lot of this stuff anymore because it's just stupid. I mean, it really is stupid. And then, by the way, I just was checking the The Hurricane Center has nothing in their 2-day forecast and nothing in their 5-day forecast. And then I looked on the Pacific side,
Good.
and Estelle is about to just disappear. And I just think back to the article that I read a couple of days ago, pronouncing that Estelle was going to become was quote unquote on the verge of becoming a Category 3 hurricane in the Pacific, which is, apparently this is not supposed to happen until the middle of September. So I would just say to the person who wrote that piece, before you proclaim I learned a long time ago in weather, the one thing you better not do is make a forecast and sort of incorporate it into your own reality of the given day, because there's probably a fair chance that what you're thinking is going to happen is not going to happen. So what you might wait, I often tell the folks that want to turn everything into something epic that why don't you wait until after the event to make the historic proclamation that it was an epic event, and not do it beforehand, because 99 times out of 100 you're going to be wrong. And the person who wrote that Eastern Pacific article that I read was wrong. And that's all I have to say. So let's do some Briller Jeopardy, finish off the week, and then I could go back up to Brasstown Bald at 5,000 feet above sea level and just sit in natural air conditioning. Oh, and by the way, I'll tell you something. I watched this weather thing that they showed. It's really unbelievable. The what goes on up there. But I am going to make it a point this winter to go up there after a snowfall, because there must be some really good looking snow shots up there in the winter time. So I'm going to make it a point. There's no internet signal. I wish there were, but I couldn't get my phone to work. But definitely going to go up there during the winter time at least once or twice. Okay, here we go. Briller Jeopardy for tonight.
Wait a minute. One thing that you realize that today, 53 years ago today, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin planted their footprints on the lunar surface, the first men to walk on the moon. But there was weather correlation, believe it or not, Joe, because immediately after the moonwalk, it was the first of a 10-day streak in which every day but one hit highs in the 70s.
Yes.
And the average high was 76. And out of those 10 days, 8 of those 10 days had rain. The total over the 10 days of rainfall was 3.29 inches.
Everybody was blaming the moon, right? The moon. Well, that they're shooting rockets into the atmosphere, and somehow they screwed up the atmosphere and they caused it to rain for 10 days. I remember that. I remember people talking and saying exactly that. But
I remember watching a local TV newscast, and one person that was being interviewed complained that, well, we should never have gone to the moon because it has completely screwed up the summer weather, as you can well see. That's really
genius.
Really, okay.
I mean, real genius.
And it never got to 100 degrees in Europe before this summer. Yeah, okay.
All right. Okay, here we go. So for Briller Jeopardy tonight, Central Park every summer usually has a night or two where, and this, by the way, we can also add to what you were just saying. Every Central Park every summer usually has a night or two where the temperature doesn't fall below 80. But on July 2nd, 1903, the record was set for the warmest overnight low ever. What was it within two?
84.
87. And
87?
Right, and believe it or not,
no.
Yes, 87 apparently. And believe it or not, it did not go to 100 the next day.
Now, how is that possible that the low was at New York?
That's
87
what 87, July 2nd, 1903.
We were not yet taking tabulations or records from Belvedere Castle, though. So where exactly was that thermometer?
Well, was it at the Battery? Was it?
Might have been at the Battery.
Was it from some car top? Like they measured the snow?
That is amazing, and especially that far back, before industry and pollution, quote unquote, was involved. That is incredible.
Death Valley, which holds the record for the hottest temperature ever at 134, also holds the United States record for the warmest overnight temperature ever, within 7 degrees. What was that overnight temperature?
87.
No, just a
No,
just a little bit
I'm,
higher.
I'm I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was having fun here tonight, folks. Um, Geez, Death Valley, low temperature. Can you give me a hint that at least it was it below 100 degrees?
No, it was not below 100.
It wasn't below 100.
No.
We had a low temperature of what, 103?
Well, he gave you a range within 7, so that is within 7. 107.7 on July 12th,
Oh, man.
July 12th, 2012. Um, and our final question, Joe, is Phoenix, Arizona in 1993 set their record for the most consecutive days over 100 degrees. So what was that? And within 27, what was that record?
Well, you said that in Texas. Was
Dallas,
it Dallas or Houston?
40,
Dallas had 43,
42.
42.
Right.
I'll say for Phoenix, God, probably not much. 37.
76 for Phoenix.
76 days above.
76. So I don't know. Maybe I should ask the studio audience: should we give you should we award you the prize from Dicker and Dicker of Beverly Hills? Which, by the way, is I don't know if we talked about this. By the way, it closed down a couple of years ago.
Oh, too bad.
It's no longer there.
Too bad. By the way, people are probably saying to themselves, "What is Rayo drinking beer while he's on doing the show?" It's actually this is Teddy's ginger beer. Ginger beer.
Ginger beer.
Which is not beer and it's not ginger ale, but I guess it's like a hybrid between the two. So
I'm drinking
yeah.
I'm drinking vodka on ice. No, actually I'm not. This is just water. Nice glass of ice water. But I have to tell you, Joe, it was quite. I've been up to Brasstown Bald before. This was the first time I've gone up on a summer day, and I was really amazed at how much cooler it was up there. It was upper. The car thermometer said 71, and then you go up another 500 or so feet to get to the very top. You have to take a bus, and they take you up there to the top, and there's a museum up there, and a few other things, and it was probably, I would say, if the car was 71, I would say it was probably about 67 to 68. And you could have used a sweatshirt would have been useful, possibly useful if you stayed up there long enough. It was also breezy, but it was quite the sight. So I'm looking forward to when the cold comes and the first snows come here in North Georgia. I'm gonna make a trip up there after a snowfall. I have 4-wheel drive, so it's a 3.5 mile ride up, so going almost straight uphill all the way. So I got my 4-wheel drive. I'm gonna chance it. I'll have somebody come with me, hold my hand, and take a look up
Yes.
there because I'm really curious as to what happens because the pictures that they showed from the wintertime and how much snow was on the ground and the ice that's all over the side of the mountain and the fact that the record low up there is 27 degrees below zero is almost it's like it they described it in the film that the climate at the top of that mountain is more like the climate in Massachusetts than it is in South Georgia or down at sea level.
Well, we'll anxiously await probably 6 months, 5 months from now, one of your photographs, one of your an adventure there
All right.
for you. So we're not on tomorrow night.
Right. We'll be back. Nothing tomorrow night, off Friday and Saturday. So we'll be back Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Okay,
And
folks?
the chairman is on. Yes, Mrs. Rayo said yes, she would be happy to do Briller Cooking Jeopardy. Although, Joe, she also said really, it should be Joe's decision, not mine. So,
Well, that's passive aggressive. I like that. All right, everybody. We'll see you on Sunday. Have a great Thursday, a great Friday, and a great weekend. We'll see you Sunday morning at 11. Nighty night.
stay cool. Good
Yeah.
night.
Uh